Yo guys, it's your boy TSS Dabcat here, back here with another video. And today I'm bringing you guys another reaction video. And today, this video is called I Won the Lottery at 13 years old and Ran Away. So, without further ado, let's get started.
I was having a hard time believing what I was seeing right in front of me. I checked and rechecked, and then checked once more, and there it was, an exact match. The same numbers on my lottery ticket were on the screen. My first instinct was to run downstairs and announce the news to my family. I was halfway down the stairs when I realized that it was a bad idea. We are 8 siblings, and my mom would just take the money herself and maybe distribute it with the rest of the family. This is my money, and I am not going to let anyone have it. It was at that moment I made the decision to run away at 12 years old. Hi, my name is Lizzie, and before I tell you what happened afterward and how my entire plan backfired, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. It all started when I saw a dream a couple of weeks ago. It was one of the most random dreams, and after waking up, I only remembered a string of numbers. For some reason, I couldn't get those numbers out of my head. A few days later, I had forgotten all about it and was walking home from school when I saw the lottery signs outside one of the local supermarkets. The numbers reminded me of my dream, and in one of the most impulsive moments of my life, I rushed home, emptied my piggy bank, which was rather heavy by this point, and visited my friend across the street. I knew I had to be of legal age in order to buy lottery tickets, and I only had one friend who would fit that criteria. Meg was in her 20s, and we had become good friends after she hired me to walk her dogs. Meg isn't one of those lively adults. In fact, sadness radiates from her all the time. Whenever we talk, she is always warning me about not trusting anyone and to always put myself first. She would go even as far as saying, "Don't do anything good for anyone because they'll always stab you in the back. That's just how life is." I didn't mind talking to her because, well, she looked pretty cool. She would smoke cigarette after cigarette and try to impart her wisdom on me. I knew if there's anyone who'd help me with this, it would be her. I left my money with her and wrote the numbers down on a paper for her to fill. For the next couple of days, I caught myself daydreaming in school. It didn't help matters that summer vacations were almost here and my friends couldn't stop talking about all the places they were planning to visit. Unfortunately, we won't be going anywhere this summer since my mom's leaves were denied and she was needed at work. She promised me that she would take us to Universal Studios, and then she broke that promise, and I couldn't help but feel angry because of it. After school, I rushed home and looked up the site where I could check the winning numbers, and there it was, right at the top. I was having a hard time believing what I was seeing right in front of me. I checked and rechecked, and then checked once more, and there it was, an exact match. The same numbers on my lottery ticket were on the screen. My first instinct was to run downstairs and announce the news to my family. I was halfway down the stairs when I realized that it was a bad idea. We are 8 siblings, and my mom would just take the money herself and maybe distribute it with the rest of the family. This is my money, and I am not going to let anyone have it.
Hey, don't play the ball like that, bro.
Run away from home, my mom called us downstairs. "Dinner's ready, kids. Come to the kitchen." Mom's voice carried throughout the house. Dinner was like usual in our house. Everyone was speaking all at once. 2 of the twin sisters were fighting over the last piece of meatball. One brother was kicking everyone under the table, and Mom and Dad were just making sure everyone was eating their dinner. I hated this racket, and I hated sharing everything with my siblings. Why couldn't I have something all for myself? Why can't I just go to a place with peace and quiet? I muttered to myself. But then I smiled, realizing that I could finally do what I want and when I wanted. The next day after school, I went to Meg's place, and together we collected the amount in a lump sum. I hid it in my backpack. It was so much cash, and I couldn't believe it all belonged to me. As I went home, I sat on my bed and smelled all that fresh money. I could feel the excitement flowing from me as I thought of my upcoming adventure. "Lizzie!" my older sister called out, and I quickly hid the cash under my mattress. She entered the room seconds later and stopped short when she looked at my face. "What were you doing?" she asked suspiciously. "Nothing. I was just about to do my homework," I replied nonchalantly and reached for my backpack. That night, I went to Meg's and asked her to book me a flight to Orlando, Florida. It's where Universal Studios is, and I decided that I was going to go alone. I felt my spirits lifting even more as Meg gave me an encouraging smile.
Go check out TSS
"You're a
Savage
smart girl,
Gods
Lizzie. I wish I had your courage and luck when I was your age." Remember, everyone is greedy, she said. When she booked the flight, I paid her in cash. Imagine my surprise when Meg asked me for more. I am helping you out with everything. You need to give me some portion of that money, she said. That's not fair, I replied angrily. Oh, really? Do you want me to tell your parents what you've been up to lately? She threatened me right back. I was shocked and angry, but I had no choice, so I reluctantly gave her more. My flight was at 6 in the morning, so I quietly packed all my stuff at night and hid my bags in the shed outside the house. At 3 a.m., I got ready and I was sneaking out of my house when I heard my older sister. Lizzie, are you out of your mind? Where are you going? She asked, confusion all over her face. As she walked towards me, I panicked and picked up a vase on my window and hurled it at her head. I just wanted her to back off, but it ended up hitting her in the head and she dropped like a stone. I jumped towards her, wanting to make sure she was all right, but realizing that this was also my only chance to escape. After taking a final glance at my sister collapsed on the floor, I turned around and fled. I finally breathed a sigh of relief when I got on the bus. However, my relief was short-lived when a few stops later, a cop climbed aboard the bus and decided to take the empty seat next to me. Instantly, I grew rigid with worry. If the cop were to become suspicious, all my planning would go down the drain. Where are you off to, young lady? The cop asked good-naturedly. I am heading to my aunt's house for the weekend, I replied. That's great. The cop smiled, but I noticed him taking in all my bags. I gulped nervously as the cop opened his mouth to say something else, and just then the bus stopped. I realized it was my stop. As I stood up to leave, the friendly cop waved at me. Stay safe, young lady, he advised with a smile. I waved back and got off the bus and headed towards the airport. I was mesmerized by the glamour and happening city, so unlike my boring hometown. The first thing I did was book a room in a rundown motel. It was disgusting and shady, but they didn't ask me where my parents were, so it all worked out. I stashed all my bags, hid the money under a loose floorboard, and headed to my first destination, Disneyland. Excitement and adrenaline filled me as I joined the ticket line at the entrance. Sadly, they didn't let me enter and told me that I needed to be accompanied by someone 14 years of age or older. Disappointed, I turned away from the gates and strolled the city without any real destination in mind when I spotted a nice little restaurant. Thankfully, no one questioned me there, and for the first time, I ordered every single thing I wanted on the menu. By the time I was done eating, I couldn't even move. With much struggle, I walked back to my motel and noticed a group of older kids hanging around. They must have been around 17 or 18. They all seemed to be having such a good time, and I couldn't even enter Disneyland. How was I ever going to get into Universal Studios? As I was just standing there, feeling sorry for myself, one of the girls caught my eye. Come here, girl, she called out, and everyone turned to me. At first, I hesitated a little, but then I took in their friendly faces and decided to join them. Hi, I'm Lizzie, I introduced myself. Hey, Lizzie, who are you here with? One of the boys asked me. For some reason, I knew these guys wouldn't report me, so I decided to tell the truth. No one. I flew here alone from Georgia, I said with a shrug. Really? One of them exclaimed in surprise. That's actually pretty cool. How old are you? The first girl asked me. I am 12, I replied shyly. That's impressive. You have to be the coolest 12-year-old I ever met. On a vacation all by yourself? The girl exclaimed with a pat on my back. For sure. What did you see in Orlando so far? The boy asked. Well, I wanted to go to Disneyland, but they wouldn't let me in alone since I am a minor and all, I answered. Well, that's nothing to worry about. We'll help get you in, the girl offered. Really? I asked in surprise. Sure. What are friends for? The girl assured me with a smile. True to their words, the next day, we all headed to Disneyland and I had the best time of my life there. I couldn't help but notice all the families there, and for some strange reason, it made me miss my own family and my little brothers and sisters. They would have loved to be here. Shaking off the sadness, I decided to thank my new friends with a treat. I took them all to the same restaurant I went to yesterday. Lizzie, you are the best. You have to come with us to this party tomorrow, one of my friends said. I have never been to a party before, I told her honestly. All the more reason to join us. Come on, you can't say no, she insisted, and eventually I agreed. The next day, I went to the party and drank for the first time. At another party, I tried smoking for the first time. That night, we even broke into a house, and I almost got myself arrested. It was scary and exciting all at the same time. I finally felt like a grown-up who could finally do whatever they pleased. I could buy whatever I wanted and hang around with cool friends that love to party and enjoy life. I made sure to repay my new friends whenever I could by offering to pay for things like cigarettes, cab rides, and other small expenses. By the end of the week, we were all exhausted from partying and sightseeing, so we decided to hang around at the motel. Someone had bought drinks, and one of them handed me me a glass. As I was drinking and listening to everyone around me talk, I felt this strange, fuzzy feeling, like I was here, but not here. The next moment, the world around me begins to spin, then blur, and finally goes all black. When I finally gain consciousness, I find myself tied to the chair in my motel room. Instantly, I panic. But then I see my friends around me and calm down. "What happened, guys? Untie me, will you?" I asked them. When none of them moved, I looked up at them in confusion. "Of course, we'll untie you, Lizzie. But first, you need to tell us where you're hiding all your money," the girl said. It took me a moment to get over the shock and deal with the situation at hand. "I don't know what you guys are talking about," I replied, but they were not listening to me. 2 of them were searching the bathroom, and the rest of them were going through my bags, my clothes, and anything else they could get their hands on. "Tell us where it is, and we'll be out of here," the girl said. I stayed quiet, but made the mistake of glancing at the floor where my money was hidden, and she instantly noticed that quick glance. "Look here," she told the others, and I watched in horror as they lifted up the loose floorboard and grabbed my cash. They high-fived and celebrated before turning to me. "Thanks, Lizzie. You are truly the best friend one could ask for," my fake friend said mockingly. They all laughed at their own joke and left my room as I sat crying in the chair, but not before they also gagged me. For the next few hours, I tried to untie myself, but I couldn't. I feared I was going to die here alone in this chair and my family wouldn't even know. Suddenly, I missed my mom and dad and my siblings, what I would give to be with them once again. I was exhausted and thirsty and felt like I was going to pass out again when I heard loud voices from outside. I tried to call out to them, but I doubted they could hear my muffled shouts. Then I heard the beautiful sound of someone turning in the key, and the door flew open. Cops stood at the door and stared at me in shock before getting into action. "You'll be all right, kid, don't worry," said one kind female cop as she untied me. The minute my hands were free, I hugged her tightly and started crying. "How did you know I was here?" I asked. "Do you remember the cop who sat next to you on the bus? He followed you to the airport and feared for your safety, so he notified us. A few hours later, your parents reported you missing, so we started searching for you immediately," the lady cop explained. "They took all my money, the kids who were staying here at the motel," I told them hurriedly. "Can you tell us what they looked like? What kind of vehicle did they drive?" the other cop inquired. I spent the next few minutes telling them everything I could about those teenagers. The kind cop told me that she had dispatched a team and that they were looking for those kids. They helped me pack my things and drove me to the airport with strict instructions. As soon as I landed, the cop from the bus would be waiting for me. "Did you have fun at your aunt's house, young lady?" he asked with a smile, and I looked down, embarrassed. "It's all right. Now come on, your family's worried about you," he said, and motioned for me to follow him. I have to admit, I was never so happy to go back home. When we neared the house, I could see my parents on the porch waiting for me, all my brothers and sisters behind them. My mom was crying and I jumped out of the car and into her arms before the car had even stopped. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry," I cried and apologized at the same time. "I'm just glad you're back home safely, Lizzie. Besides, it isn't me you should be apologizing to," my mom said and stepped aside as my sister came forward. She had a bandage wrapped around her head, but she was smiling. "Oh no," I gasped as a stab of guilt shot through my body. "Don't worry, Lizzie. I have already claimed a percentage from your lottery money for this headache," she teased. "Honestly, you could have had it all, but sadly, all of it's gone now," I told them sadly. "No, it isn't. The good cops were able to track down your friends and get your money back. They are facing charges, by the way," my dad said with a wink. "Does that mean we got all the money back?" I asked in surprise. "Yes, and guess where we're going, Lizzie?" my 5-year-old sister asked as she jumped up and down in excitement. "Where?" I humored her. "To Disneyland," she shouted, and I couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. As we all went inside the house, I looked back and saw Meg across the street shaking her head at me as if disappointed. For the first time since I had met her, she didn't look so cool anymore. She just looked sad and alone.
Wow, guys. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and go check out my friend's channel.
Team, and then they were looking for those kids.
Without further ado,